Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Job Hunter podcast. I'm your host Tim French, and this week on the Virtual Careers Fair we will be delving into the exciting world of British television. More specifically, we'll be hearing about what is involved in creating one of the BBC's flagship primetime programmes. I hope you're enjoying this series so far, and trust me, this one is a good one. So as always, sit back, relax and enjoy the show. Today I am delighted to welcome Dan Viner from the glorious British Broadcasting Corporation to the Job Hunter podcast. The national treasure that is our BBC produces some fantastic programming, and I'm looking forward to getting stuck in to finding out more about what goes on behind the scenes and goes into making them. Dan, why don't you start off by telling the listeners a bit more about what you do at the Beeb?
Hi Tim, it's great to be on. I'm actually really excited to join this conversation. So my job title at the moment is actually a little bit confusing. So the way that I am credited on the program is different to my actual job title, and my job title on the production is different to what I was hired as. So I am a technical assistant is my official job title, but I was hired as something called a base operations assistant, and I've had 7 different credits on the program so far, everything from a runner to an aerial camera to researcher. So my role is pretty varied.
Which program is this we're talking about?
This is Countryfile. Sorry, I should say Countryfile. So one of the BBC's flagship shows goes out on a Sunday night on BBC One. Regularly gets the highest viewership of any program on TV, and it's slot 6 to 7 million viewers. It's gone up since lockdown. Everyone's stuck inside watching TV on a Sunday evening. So it's not a show that I watched before I started working on it, I'll be honest, but our demographic does skew slightly older. But it's a good show to work on. I really enjoy working on it.
And how did you get into working for Countryfile and obviously working for the BBC?
So I got into TV in a slightly roundabout way. I did a history degree at uni, really enjoyed that, but didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I had a family member who worked in TV, had also done a history degree. So did a bit of work experience for him, his company, decided that I wanted to pursue it. And then from there, I just, started putting out some feelers. There's a big database of a whole lot of production companies that I just went down alphabetically, sent out a CV to a whole lot of people, picked up a few bits of work here and there. And then after uni, I basically got a job via Facebook. There's a lot of big Facebook groups where work is posted, stuff around in Bristol. And eventually through a few different jobs, was able to be accepted into a pool of runners for the BBC in Bristol. And from there, I secured the job on Countryfile. And I've been working there for 2 years now.
Brilliant. And what would you say your main kind of roles are in this new job? What did they get you doing at Countryfile?
It's incredibly varied. So obviously since lockdown as well, things have changed massively. The TV industry was knocked sideways basically by everything, all the lockdown restrictions, the number of people who were able to be on location at one time. So I started out as a runner, which is the most junior member of the production. I'd be on location a lot, doing everything from making teas to in the office, helping to prepare stuff. One of my main responsibilities was all the memory cards we had to take, making sure that we managed our kit stock, sorting out cameras, that sort of thing. And I've since moved up. The runner position was discontinued and the technical assistant position was opened, which basically is a lot more hands-on. So I do a lot of shooting. I'm able to shoot with our broadcast cameras. I'm a qualified drone pilot, so I do a lot of drone filming as well. And then on the side, I do everything from source archive footage from the BBC archives to our programs, help to research stories for upcoming locations, and still help prep all the kit. There's 3 people in my position. We basically are the technical advisors for the program. So sort out camera kit, advise on how things can be shot, And we do a lot of recording Zoom calls at the moment as well, because that's how we're getting a lot of our content, our presenters Zoom calling people who are either shielding or vulnerable, so can't be physically in person.
So how does it work kind of, per episode? Do you have like a list of places that you need to go, or do they already have places in mind before they shoot, the 3 weeks in advance of the episode going out, or what's the process?
So the planning process is pretty extensive, but then also in a TV sense, it's very constricted actually. So Countryfile is fairly unique in that it goes out every single week. There's no series. Well, it does roll into series. We're in series 32, I think, at the moment, but there's no discernible break. So Countryfile's been on TV every single week. For this weekend is episode 1604. So 1,604 weeks in a row, Countryfile's been on TV. So there's no break, and it just rolls on, which leaves a lot less time for pre-production and planning. So what happens is we have someone called a forward planning researcher. They are given a list of potential locations by the top table, the producers, the series producer, who say, right, well, we haven't been, to Northern Ireland for a while. We haven't been to Southwest Wales for a while, that kind of thing. And then they will source out a couple of stories. They'll do some research, put in the groundwork, find, like maybe an anchor place, say like a castle where there's a lot of stuff going on, or a farm, which is particularly interesting. And then they hand that location over to a locations researcher. This is 2 weeks out from the filming. So that locations researcher then has got to find roughly 5 to 7 stories, which will be filmed. They phone bash, they internet search, they speak to contacts in all manner of organisations, everything from Forestry England to the National Trust, to find out just what's going on in that region. They meet people, they have a recce. Well, they used to have recce's before lockdown. That is something that was coming back in, but then lockdown started again and recce's kind of stopped. So they, in the normal world, go for a recce, meet people, see, well, actually, that person's maybe not as interesting as we thought, but this person, they're super interesting, even though what they're talking about isn't particularly interesting. So we'll make sure we have them. And that's how we might like to film that kind of thing. And then the week of shoot, someone like myself, given a big list of kit that we've got to sort, we will talk to our kit room at the BBC. We've got some of our own cameras. We might have to hire some in. Some of our directors are self-shooters, so they'll film their own footage. Sometimes we'll hire in cameramen. Previously, we'd always have a cameraman and a sound recordist, as well as director. But since lockdown, we've started having way less people on location. So someone like myself, who can shoot drone, do a few different jobs, is quite in demand. There's limits footprints on the ground. And then we'll have a location shoot. So last week I was in the Brecon Beacons in the Black Mountains. I was there from Wednesday to Friday. 2 days of location shooting, normally 1 or 2 stories per day with a presenter. And you'll film your stuff, get what you can. It was very rainy where we were before. So that was a challenge, but we're always filming outside, so we've got to work with the conditions. Then all those memory cards, we take them out of the cameras, put them in a little bag, and then someone like myself drops it to our post-production facility to then be edited in the next week. And then 2 weeks after we film, we go on TV.
So you mentioned the Brecon Beacons there. What would you say are some of the most memorable locations you've been to, or the most exotic locations you've been to?
I wouldn't say anywhere particularly exotic, at least on Countryfile, which is British Isles based. But I've been to some really, really beautiful places. So I filmed in some like a lovely fishing village in Cornwall in the height of summer. The Scottish Highlands, particularly memorable. We've got a recurring theme on a shooting estate up there. Sort of crumbling old manor house, massive fells and glens. The typical Scottish view. A really beautiful place in central Wales called Lake Vyrnwy. I was a couple of months ago, which is really beautiful. I think, to be honest, it's really hard to place a particular location that is impactful to me. It's just a lot of the time it's somewhere that's completely random. It's quite small. It's not particularly interesting. But then, the sun will come out, or, you'll see a sunset, or, it'll just stop raining and, all the trees are green. And it's just beautiful being outside a lot of the time. And I'm really, really privileged that my job takes me to so many different and varied places. And I've been very, very lucky to film some of them and to really appreciate the beauty of what the world we live in looks like, and particularly our own British Isles.
Do you get a kind of sense of satisfaction when you see the stuff you've filmed out on TV on a Sunday night at prime time?
Massively, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm often busy on a Sunday evening, so I don't often watch the program live. But when the film is edited together, that 4 to 6 minute film that's self-contained that I've worked on, they'll edit it out and then they send out what's called a play out. Once that's been picture locked, but not had the voiceover, not had the grading, that kind of thing put over it. And so I'll see that and I'll think, oh, you know what, actually, I am really proud of that. I think that looks really good, particularly if it's something that has had quite a lot of work go into it. So occasionally we have special episodes or long running strands, which I'll have gone on multiple shoots for and not have sort of seen what the footage looks like other than on the screen of my drone controller or something like that. So about 6 weeks ago, we had a Harvest special episode, so that went out in October. But I'd been filming for that since July in various different forms. And it was just great to see it all come together. And that had been a lot of work, probably 5 or 6 shoots over the course of a few months. And that was really great to see all the footage that I had thought, oh, that's great. Sometimes you catch something or you do a shot and you think, well, that's really nice. I'm pleased with that. And then to see that all cut together in a big film, that's really pleasing. Absolutely. And I think you feel creatively fulfilled. It's nice to think in your head, right, I can see that, that thing over there, that combine harvester, that's driving in a straight line over there, but I want to try and capture it in a certain way. I want to fly around it like this. I want to shoot it at this frame rate, that sort of thing. And it's really satisfying to then see that come together, because obviously someone else is editing together the footage that I shoot. It's the director or it's the producer. So it's nice to see how they interpret the footage that you captured and how that then fits into and embellishes and adds quality to the footage that's been shot elsewhere. So yeah, it is nice. I always I'll get a text from my grandparents or something, be like, you're on the credits again tonight. And I'm like, I know.
Get them phrased.
Yeah, it's nice, particularly the first time you get credited as a certain thing. So I was a runner for 12 months or so. But then when I learned to shoot. I taught myself to use the cameras that we have, got a bit of training from a couple of the guys in the kit room. And then it was like the first time I then used that on location. That was then, and find an additional camera or whatever it was the first time. So that's cool, because it's vindication of some hard work, and it's a sign that you've made a step up.
So can you give the listeners a bit of a sneak peek of anything you've got coming up, anything exciting?
It is, so in a few weeks' time, there's a special episode called Plant Britain, which is going to be launching a giant BBC-wide effort called Plant Britain, which is basically aimed at getting the nation planting, rebuilding green spaces. And it's going to be a 2-year BBC initiative to, I think, coincide with the 100th anniversary of the BBC, so 1921, or whenever that was. Which is massive. Like, it was sort of an episode some of the people in our team came up with. And then once they started to voice that, people much, much higher up thought, oh, that's great. That'll tie into this other stuff that we're doing. And it's really big. There's some quite big names who are going to be, involved in various ways, sending messages of encouragement, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's really exciting to be a part of. And myself and my colleagues have been filming a lot of stuff over the past few months, some time lapses, some colors changing in forests, that kind of thing, which have been really, we found really creative ways to do that. And that's airing a week on Sunday. So that's, one of those long-term projects that is coming out soon. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not won't be able to give any specifics about who's involved in that, but there are some quite fun names that are going to be involved in giving little messages of encouragement, that kind of thing. So it's quite cool to be a part of, actually.
And what would you say is kind of the bit that you enjoy the most about your job?
I have always liked photography and images particularly. So for me, the filming and the drone work is what I feel most creatively fulfilled in doing. So I was just filming at a pottery place yesterday. It was just one day. Inside, our presenter was doing some pottery work, and it just something about an artist's workshop, and it's all a bit splattery, and there's clay everywhere, and it's you can shoot stuff in slow motion. Pottery is particularly, I think, lends itself to nice images because stuff happens quite quickly. You go from a lump of clay to a beautiful pot in 5 minutes when these guys are so good. So there's something about just watching that take place in front of you and thinking how you might creatively get the best version of that, because you're obviously seeing holistically the whole image. You've got everything, but in the camera you can just focus on that specific bit. You can suggest things in a certain way using your depth of focus or your framing, and I really enjoy that. And then I got my drone license in March, just before lockdown, and seeing the world from above through the eyes of a drone is really, really remarkable, and it's been really good fun to learn how to creatively use that, because you don't want every shot to just be a bird's eye view pointing straight down or just flying really high. You want to fly in a circle around your subject. You want to follow a person walking, but not make it look like it's a drone. You want to show a car in movement or whatever that is. And that's been really fun as well, to work out how to do that and to troubleshoot a little bit and just to get things wrong sometimes and get things right sometimes. That's really nice. And I felt creatively fulfilled in doing that. And over lockdown, I've had the chance to put together a couple of show reels and stuff, because I suddenly realized I actually shot a lot of footage. There's a lot of my stuff that's been on TV. That's cool. And I just wanted to put that together to see what that looked like. And I was quite surprised by the amount of episodes that I've shot, hundreds of gigabytes worth of footage that's on TV that, I did that. That's really fun to think about, and quite privileged, I think, to be in that position. And yeah, it's something I maybe need to stop and consider more often, that actually, jobs are frustrating sometimes, things go wrong or you get tired of whatever, but actually that's my camera stuff on TV. 7 million people are watching that. That's really cool. And I think that's a real blessing that I get to say that at this moment.
So do you ever wish you had a more 9-to-5 job, or do you think that you could handle a more 9-to-5 job now you're working at Countryfile?
I'd say, sometimes it is 9 to 5, or it's more 9:30/10 to 5:30. It's a soft media start. But I am quite office based a lot of the time. So I'm on location in theory for 2 or 3 days every couple of weeks. So that varies depending on the production schedule, but I'm office based. We keep office hours. So I do have office work, but I think that kind of sat in an office cubicle, 9 to 5, keying stuff into a spreadsheet, suit and tie, that's not something I could do really. I love coming into work in a t-shirt and shorts and a pair of flip-flops in the summer, just being able to wear what I wanted, being able to feel comfortable and being able to, expand my horizons a little bit. I wasn't just sat on a computer, although I have been doing quite a lot of that recently. It's nice to think, right, I'm doing this now, but then, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do this. And even if I didn't, go on location for the thing that I've been setting up, the thing that I've been planning, it's nice to be working on creative things and enabling and facilitating creative things rather than, I think just spreadsheeting or whatever it is people do in real jobs.
Do you have any kind of interesting or funny stories that you can share with us?
It's difficult. I mean, every shoot is different. Everything is completely, unique every shoot, but nothing particularly jumps to mind, but I think what the moments that you really remember on location, everyone says, is when everything goes absolutely wrong and it just doesn't work. I mean, actually just last week we were in the Brecon Beacons. It was me and a self-shooting director, a researcher, and our presenter. It was Elliot Harrison in this case, and we were going to go film these guys doing peat restoration on the top of this big old mountain. So, we started walking, then instantly, I've done a little bit of drone stuff, and then instantly clouds come down, you can't see 10 feet in front of you. It's, you obviously can't fly a drone in that. And then rain starts, and it is raining sideways, and I've got this 40,000 pound camera on my shoulder, and there's no rain cover because, the rain cover was left in the car because the weather was nice and we left the cars, but then suddenly rain comes in and you're like, flip. So, the director pulled an old, like a clean, thankfully, dog poo bag out of his backpack that he had. And there was a carry bag and someone's scarf and a woolly hat wrapped around the lens just to try and keep the rain off it. And then you've got to take all that on film. So it's like, quick, do the bit, do the piece of camera, do the stuff. Right, we've got to face this way because the wind's coming this way. And if we face the wind, the rain will get on the lens and then we'll have to clean it. And everyone's absolutely frozen. I'm wearing about 8 layers, waterproof everything. We're all soaked through. Everyone's cold. And, then the lens starts fogging. This is like a 30,000 pound lens that is not mine. And it's fogged up because water's got inside it because the rain has been driven inside. It's all fogged up. And, it's like flip. It was all going wrong. But at the end of it, we get down off the mountain, it's like, oh, well done, guys. It feels good to get through that. I did then have to spend a lot of the evening with a hairdryer, just hair drying this lens because it was very steamy and very, very expensive. But thankfully, it dried out. The water was able to evaporate. But that night, we all just sat around, socially distanced, in the restaurant at the hotel we were staying, just had a beer. It was just like, guys, well done. We got through that. And those are the shoots that you probably remember. And, those guys who I went out with, that'll be like, we can chat about that. We can reminisce over that again because that was a tough one. We're in the Beacons, obviously, so groups of army guys just jogging around all the time in their camo, absolutely loving it. And we were just there with our camera kit, frantically trying to keep it dry. But it just went well, and it went, as well as it could have done in the situation. And I think there are so many shoots that I've been on. There isn't one that sort of particularly stands out, but yeah, it's those moments where stuff goes wrong and you have to adapt, and then you get through it anyway, and you come out the other side with a product that if you watched it on TV, you wouldn't know that everything had been absolutely balls up by the weather or, whatever. And it's nice to come out the other side of that, I think.
So you mentioned that obviously the Countryfile gets about 7 million viewers per episode. Do you see that changing as we kind of time moves on? Obviously, the way people consume content is changing. How do you think that's going to affect the BBC over time?
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone would deny that there's a bit of an existential crisis surrounding terrestrial TV at the moment. I mean, our viewing numbers have actually gone up quite significantly since lockdown because people are sat inside. They're not going out on a Sunday evening. People are, as a family, gathering around to watch TV. But, the reality is, less people are watching terrestrial TV live, in the moment. That's the fact. Younger people, particularly, are consuming content on demand, on their phones, on YouTube, whatever that may be. So, we have to adapt to that. But, we are looking to do that. We have guest presenters who appeal to younger demographics. We have, different ways of trying to get content out there, Twitter feed, all that kind of stuff. And that's not really, it's not my job to think about how those things can be dealt with. That is a high level thing that, the BBC is trying to slimline to cut costs. The BBC is trying to appeal to a younger audience, that kind of thing. But my role is making the content as good as it can be at this stage. My role is to make stuff as, as pristine and as good as it can be. And, we hear from audience feedback that people love what we do, but, it's like you said, it's that what is happening, what is the overall trend. And I think there is absolutely still a place for event viewing. You look at something like, I'd say Planet Earth 2, which came out, what was it, 2 years ago or something? That was, the most viewed TV event that year. And everyone watched it live because you had to see what was happening. You had to see that lizard escaping the snakes or whatever it was. There were those moments where people just watch live because they have to, because they need to know what's happening at exactly the same time as everyone else. And I'd say event viewing is still very much a thing, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that we move to more of an on-demand type thing either. because, like something like iPlayer, we get millions of views from iPlayer. Not everyone watches live, but if people are going and watching the show on iPlayer, that evening or later on, I don't think that's an issue either. But, I am a comparatively junior person in the TV industry, and there are people much smarter and with much higher salaries than I have thinking about these issues and not coming up with answers at the moment. But I would say that lockdown has been positive for us in terms of our audience, because we've increased our audience number. Our audience share is very good, pretty much the most viewed show, as I said, in our slot, which changes every week. We're pushed around because of Strictly, or because of His Dark Materials at the moment, or because of the football, but we still get millions of viewers, like a 30+ percentage point audience share across any channel. And that's a big deal. And that is, that says something about the faithfulness of the audience that we have and the quality of the show that we produce. So that's something that's cool to be a part of as well.
And do you feel a sense of pride when you tell people you work for the BBC and work on Countryfile?
It's interesting. Yeah, I do. It's nice to work for something that people have heard of, like the BBC. The majority of countries in the world, you could go and you could say BBC and people would know, because the BBC is one of the country's greatest, most successful global exports. BBC is a global name in production quality, and that's cool. And even with the specific show that I'm working on, the number of people that watch it, and particularly the places that we go film, like the countryside, on a mountain somewhere, in a village in the middle of wherever, people watch the show generally. And so when you're there and say, what are you filming for? You say Countryfile. Oh, Countryfile. Oh, great. We do watch that. And people are excited. And as I say, it wasn't a show that I watched before I was on, I was part of the production, but it is a quality show. There's really high production values for what the budget is, which is not much. So it's nice to be a part of that. And I think it's, I wouldn't say that I'm someone who is proud, in general, but you feel a sense of pride that you work on something that's good, and you look at the thing that you and your team have put together and you think, yeah, that's good. Actually, that looks good. That's a nice story. That's well told. That's nicely shot. And then, you can feel a part of that. That's cool.
And do you have any real tips for prospective showrunners out there about how to get into the BBC or how to get into television in general?
So I would say that show running is a different role. That's more of a, like, if you're a showrunner, you're the boss, basically. That's more of an American term. But so I started as a runner, but that's not the job that I do at the moment. But everyone in TV pretty much starts as a runner if you want to be on that side of things. And there are a lot of people who are trying to do that at one time. And there are a lot of people who are very competent. And so you've got to keep plugging away, basically. So, what I did, which is by no means the only way to get into TV, but what I did was, after that initial week of work experience, which, came through a family connection, that is an inside contact. But after that, I basically just wrote up a CV, never done any TV work before, just put down some stuff. And like I said, I just found the PACT database. So the PACT database is basically a big network of production companies in the UK. There are about 1,000+ companies on there. I went down alphabetically. I looked for any company that I might want to work with. I was looking in Bristol because that's where I wanted to be based. And I just went through. Oh, wait, no, I wasn't looking in Bristol. I just went down alphabetically all the way, and I got to F before anyone responded to me positively. And those guys were like, hey, thanks for emailing. We're looking for a runner. We've got a shoot in Greece next week for a week. Do you want to come with us? And I was like, yeah. I was in Bristol at the time. They said, can you just pop into the office in London tomorrow? You show us your passport. And so I then had to think, right, okay, I'll book a train to London. And I just had to get there. And I was in London for 25 minutes to give my passport, and I was back up. I was in Sheffield at the time. Actually, it was the summer holidays. And, and then the next week I was on a plane to Greece. to help shoot a whole lot of commercial stuff for, I think it was Thomas Cook. To then just be a runner. I was just a pair of hands. I was just running around. I did everything from just carry camera kit, get food. I was even in a couple of the shots because I needed an extra body, that kind of thing. But I didn't know anything. I'd never been on any kind of set before. I'd never been on a shoot. I didn't know anything at all, but I was just lapping it up. And then again, I got back home and I was like, right, well, now I've got some experience. Put out my CV, sent my CV out to a whole lot of other people. And I went from there. And I met some people in Bristol. I was really lucky to get a little internship as a researcher with a new production company when I graduated. A contact that I'd made, I sat down with him, we had a coffee, and he liked me, so he wanted to hire me for a few months. And that then was another foot in the door. That's some more experience. That's back on the CV. And then I spent a couple of months with nothing, because that happens sometimes. I was aggressively pursuing contacts. I was making phone calls. I met some people. I was just going through the job sites on Facebook. There's a lot of Facebook groups that I'll mention in a minute that jobs get posted on for entry-level TV people. And I was just going through. A couple of months, I didn't have anything. I was kind of sat at home, freelancing, as I call it, but looking to find a job. And then something came up on Facebook, went to a group interview, got a job as a runner. And I was at a post-production house. It's where a lot of people start out. And I made tea and toast for like 9 months. I learned about how post-production works. I learned the different roles. I worked alongside a lot of people. And what was good about that role is that the post-production company I worked for in Bristol was where a lot of shows, I might want to be a part of, were made. The editors and directors are in these rooms all day, every day. And I'm in there making their life easier. I'm bringing them the food they want. I'm remembering what tea they like. Go buy them their lunch. And you can have conversations with them. You chat about what they're working on. You build up a relationship. And then, Countryfile was made in that building. And I got to know all the Countryfile team who were in. I made them tea and I remembered their orders and made myself useful to them. And then when I, through another application, was able to get into this BBC Runners Talent Pool 6 months later, I then heard, well, Countryfile were looking for a runner. And I was like, great, put me in. And because I was one of, there was a very high number of people who applied for this runners thing. So that one was positive to, have that on my CV that I was one of the people out of 500 or whatever it was who got into this runners talent pool. That then, looks good from a Countryfile perspective. Dan's been vetted already. Here's a CV. But then when I go to the interview, it's just Jo. I make her tea every week. I know her, she knows me, and we have that connection already. So 2 different strands, a personal relationship that I had made through a working environment, and then some hard graphs to build up a CV, to build up some connections, to spend ages over the application that I put into the career service to get this runners pool thing. That then meant when I got into an interview, I didn't feel overwhelmed at all. It was something that I knew. It was a relationship that I built over a number of months that then was positive. So TV is a very relationally based industry, but you don't get a job at least in my experience, you don't get a job just because you know someone. You get a job because you're competent, and someone. It has to be both. You have to be able to do the job. You have to be good at it. But then if there's 2 people that they're looking to hire, and you're the person who's been their absolute lifesaver when it's the middle of the night and they need someone to order them Domino's and clear up their mess and do all that kind of stuff, that's then I think, that's the person I'm going to hire. In my interview, actually, they said, we've got to think, who is the person that you'd be willing to sit next to on a plane for 12 hours? As well as the fact that you have to be able to do the job. People who don't relate well to others, people who aren't nice, people who aren't positive influences on a team, they don't get rehired. And I've been lucky to encounter very few of those so far on Countryfile. It's been a great team, but sometimes you'll have a crew member, someone who's along for a day or two, cameraman who's unpleasant or whatever, and just like, well, they're not working with us again. We're not going to hire them. They'll get an X next to their name on the spreadsheet of crew members or whatever, because no one wants to work with someone who's unpleasant. So yeah, I'd say first and foremost, you've got to be likable. You've got to be nice. You've got to be able to get on with people, at least in my experience. But then you have to be flipping good at your job as well. You've got to be really competent, and you've got to be really, skilled. You've got to be willing to upskill yourself. At the same time, you can't just coast in the industry that you're in. You have to think, right, well, I've been here for 4 months. What have I gained? How have I improved myself? How have I made myself more employable? So one of the pieces of advice that one of the talent team at BBC gave me is to not stay in a job where you don't feel like you're learning anymore, not to stay in a place where you're just coasting, because you're not going to gain from that. You're not going to be able to step up from there. And thankfully, I've been very lucky in the jobs that I've been in so far to be able to learn a lot consistently. Countryfile is very good at giving you opportunities to learn, to grow, and to be upskilled. The production paid for my drone training. Production's paid for kit for me to be able to use it on location. They are getting a free drone pilot, which would normally be hundreds and hundreds of pounds a day. But I'm gaining from that as well. I'm gaining skills. I've lost count of the number of drone shoots I've been on, and the number of different locations, the number of types of stuff that I've shot, the number of conditions that I've shot in. And that's hugely valuable for me. And I can then leverage that as and when I want to move on to say, look, yes, I've only worked for one production, but I've had 7 different roles so far, and I've had nothing but positive feedback. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. Desire to improve yourself. And a lot of that just comes from relationship. If you speaking to a cameraman you're working with regularly, like, how do you do that? Can you show me that? Or when you've got time, could I drop you an email? We could chat about this. And people are always very happy to, in my experience, because they remember what it's like starting out. They remember what it's like not knowing anything, not knowing anyone. And they remember the people who helped them. They remember the people who gave them a chance.
And have you given much thought to kind of where you want to be, at the end of your career? What's the career progression for you, or career ambition, let's say? So
for me, the thing that I'm keen to do is probably to stay in what's called production. So that's the making of the TV show, rather than the financing of the TV show, or the post-production, which would be like the editing together of the TV show. But I'd want to maintain that kind of technical skill base as well. So I don't want to be a cameraman. I don't want to be just a drone operator, because essentially if you were a crew member by profession, then you're only working if you're away from home. And I don't want to be away from home all the time. I think that's important. My family needs to take priority ultimately. So I don't want to be away for months and months on end all the time. So probably what I would ultimately like to end up as is something like a shooting PD, a shooting producer director. So someone who can film themselves, someone who has the capability to produce broadcast level quality content on their own, on location, but isn't like a craft cameraman. Not the only thing that they do. So that person would, I'd want to research, I'd want to write scripts, I'd want to be able to see the film through into the edit, kind of cut that together, that kind of thing. So that's probably the direction I want to go in. There's a few rungs I'd need to climb up before that. But that's the direction I'd like to be. Someone who is able to do a few different jobs, able to shoot, but then also able to direct. And I've had a few opportunities to do that in little ways so far, which has been cool. And hopefully once the world opens back up and life returns to something virtually normal, I'll be able to do a little bit more of that.
So, if you are at my virtual careers fair, how would you market your career to others? If you were, imagine you're back at the secondary school hall, presenting BBC Countryfile to a young 16-year-old who's looking to find out more about careers. How would you sell yourself?
I'd say the job is incredibly varied. It's creatively fulfilling. You get to meet an incredibly wide range of people, not all of them easy to get on with, but a lot of great people. There's travel. You get to visit cool places. You get to be a part of a really exciting show, something that ultimately you can feel proud to be a part of. And yes, sometimes it's frustrating, or sometimes, you're away again, or you're back late on a Friday night and, it's tired. It's tiring, and, you're carrying heavy kit and you just think, I'd just really like to sit in an office for a bit. But at the end of it, you're able to view a product that you've created that is really good and really fulfilling. There's huge scope to advance your skill set and to have opportunities to give that, put those skills into practice on location. As a show, Countryfile particularly, it's very good at giving people opportunities to try stuff out. And that's relatively unusual in TV. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've been given, particularly. There are issues sometimes, and there's been rumblings here and there amongst the team sometimes about this issue or that issue, but things do get sorted out. And as a team, I think people get on fairly well, and there's good groups, there's good support networks of people who can tell you how to do stuff if you don't know. And there's places that you can go to find out answers. And ultimately, you really get to do a wide range of jobs. You really get to hone a wide range of skills, and that will give you a great opportunity to step up into the next thing if that's what you want to do in TV.
Dan, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting with you today. Really, really loved all the stuff you talked about. Where can everyone find you on the internet if they want to look you up?
Find me on the internet? Well, I don't really have a professional presence on the internet, but I am thinking that I'll probably start up soon. So if you search for Dan Viner on the internet, there's not many of me. I've got an Instagram. I'll be putting up some show reels and some video content soon. So that's Dan Viner online, and I'm sure you'll find me somewhere.
Brilliant. Thanks again for chatting to us, and I hope
the next show goes well. You.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, Dan. I'm really looking forward to seeing more about your big campaign in the new year. If you want to see some more of Dan's excellent photos, go check out his Instagram @Dan Viner. While we're on the subject of socials, you can find us, as always, on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter @JobHunterPod, and on YouTube @JobHunterPodcast. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, why not shout about it? Leave a review and a 5-star rating on your platform of choice. It really does make a difference. I want to hear about your success stories. Whether that's a little win or a massive one, drop me a message or an email at jobhunterpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, I've been your host, Tim French. This has been the Job Hunter Podcast. Stay safe, and I'll see you next week.